Well, the Office of Alumni Relations, along with the College of Business and Leadership, is very happy to have all of you join us this evening. We're very thankful for Mike for joining, and of course, for Al for also co-hosting this event with us. And Al, take it away.
Great, thank you. Thank you all for being here tonight. This is it's a great turnout. Any amount of alumni that we can have on a Wednesday evening is a great thing. So thank you for coming. I just wanted to share with you briefly some of the things I share with my students. I teach a class called Finance for Managers. It used to be Finance for Entrepreneurs, and maybe there's some of you out in the audience that took this class with me. Maybe you want to forget about that experience, but so I'm using this book that I got at a conference probably 4 or 5 years ago from Kingdom Advisors. Mike, you probably heard of them. It's a book called God and Money, How We Discovered True Riches at Harvard Business School by John Cortines and Gregory Baumer. And what I like about the book is it's just such a simple read. It's not complicated at all. It's not throwing formulas at you and things like that. And it really takes such a strong biblical perspective. So I'm just going to read a couple of things from it just to give you a brief idea of what the book's about. And I believe this goes a lot along with what we're going to talk about tonight. And I love their approach. And this is right in the preface to the book. And they say, this book is about our ongoing journey from mindsets of spending and saving to the mindset of servant. We have learned so much along this journey, but most significantly, we no longer ask, how much should we give? Rather, our question has now become, how much do we need to keep? Which is really a very interesting way to look at this. I have never thought of it that way. And the main perspective comes from that everything is God's, and everything that we receive comes from God. So it's not ours. So then the question becomes, it's not how much should we give, because it's not ours anyway. It's how much do we get to keep? Because all the rest of it is supposed to be used for his kingdom and his glory. So there's 7 principles. I'm just going to read them quick, and maybe I can wet your whistle as to, taking a look at the book or something like this. But so the first one, everything we own actually belongs to God, everything. Second principle, our wealth and possessions should be used for God's purposes. Number 3, wealth is like dynamite with great potential for both good and harm. Number 4, worldly wealth is fleeting. Heavenly treasure is eternal. Number 5, giving generously to the poor is a moral duty in a fallen world. Number 6, giving should be voluntary, generous, cheerful, and needs-based. And finally, giving generously breaks the power of money over us. We hear that scripture verse all the time. And people think about money being evil, but the scripture verse says, the love of money is what's evil, right? And that's things that we do as humans, that we pretty much look to gather riches on our own. But so this book really just focuses on what we as Christians need to do with God has given to us. So anyway, I just thought I'd bring that up because that's, the heart and soul of who we are at Eastern. And I know that's the heart and soul of what Thrivent is. And Thrivent's been a great partner for us over the last few years. They hosted a great event for our traditional students in fall 2019, brought in a gentleman called Adam Carroll, who is a national speaker. And we had a lot of traditional students attend, and it was just a great event. And those kids got to hear about, finances. So I'm going to turn it over to Mike. And Mike, I hope and pray that the Lord blesses you and that, you can get your message across and folks will hear what they need to hear.
Well, I hope to do a good job, Al, and thank you for the introduction there. I think someone had a question. Al, can you repeat the name of the book and the author of that book again?
Yes, it's God and Money, and it's by John Cortines, Cortines, and Gregory Baumer, Baumer.
Perfect.
And if the first person asks for a free copy in the chat, I'll send you one.
I guess I don't count because I'm talking. It has to be in the chat, right?
And a free set of Ginzu knives. No, that's just.
Well, thanks, Al. Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining us this evening. Hopefully you get a lot out of this. This is meant to be loose, informative, and something that you can benefit from and take on into the future. Anytime I give a presentation, I want to leave you with action items and things that are going to help you progress. And also open up the invitation, and I'll do it now and at the end, to say if you do have follow-up questions, please know that there are people out there to help. You can either reach out to me directly. You can reach out to one of my colleagues at Thrivent via the website, regardless of where you are in the country. I'm located in Pennsylvania, but someone at Thrivent is willing to take your call and walk you through things if you have any follow-up questions to what's going on here. So again, my name is Michael Ghelardi. I'm a certified financial planner and behavior financial advisor. Been doing personal finance for about 8 years with Thrivent, and Thrivent is a not-for-profit Christian-based financial services company. The intention is to help people be wise with money and live generous lives, and viewing money as a tool, not necessarily the ultimate end-all be-all goal. Finding ways to increase generosity, finding ways to help people be more comfortable and be good stewards with their resources. Over the past, I'd say 13, 14 months, a lot of people have had changes to their lives with financial matters, job changes, status changes, things going on that maybe hopefully this presentation tonight can help people who are in need recalibrate and adjust and give some hope that it's not all about money, but it's about making progress. And the first small baby step is knowledge, and an investment in knowledge through your time is one of the best things that you can do. And hopefully I can do a good job of at least imparting some wisdom on you and opening up the floor to saying someone's here to help and listen should you be in a situation where you want to talk through things. Budgeting sometimes gets a bad connotation. So budgeting for what matters most. I'm hoping that by the end of this class, you recalibrate your brain into not thinking budget is a bad word, but a way to realign and be deliberate with money. At some point in your lives, I'm hoping that everyone, I think there's about 30 people or so, have either gone on a vacation, gone to college, or bought a car. If you've done any one of those three things, it wasn't an outright spontaneous action. You did some research. And what I like to say starting off with budgets in the beginning is budgets are deliberate, and it's meant to align your goals and your passions with your actions. When you plan for a vacation, you understand where you're going. And your goal might be, if you're going to Nome, Alaska for the Iditarod, which is happening right now, to pack warm clothes, to pack a toothbrush, pack your thermals. You're probably going to leave the swimsuit at home. Those are deliberate steps. You take a step back and assess the situation, and you align what you're doing with what's moving forward. That's the ultimate way of a budget. It's not meant to be restrictive. It's meant to be a guide to align and calibrate what you have going on in your life with what you want to have happen, and to take deliberate actions and put your resources to where you need to be. So on the next screen here, there you are going to a vacation. That's not exactly the Iditarod, which is happening right now. My daughter's learning about it in school. That's why I brought it up. But specifically, there's obstacles that people encounter when formulating a budget and with understanding. Hopefully you'll gain an understanding of your priorities and how those priorities affect your financial life. We're going to discuss easy ways to set achievable goals and to take actionable items in determining what your goals actually are. That's the first step of determining what you want and what your values are. And then we'll actually give you some tools that you can use to track your spending, and we'll share the secret of success. And the secret to success to me is passion. If you're passionate about life, if you're passionate about an action, if you're passionate about helping people, be in alignment and have your resources line up to that. So again, this is about organizing, being deliberate, and calibrating. The reason I came with Thrivent specifically was to help people do that. I was working in a large public accounting company for a number of years prior to Thrivent. I realized that I wanted to help people. I realized that my passion and my alignment for earning money wasn't, and ultimately spending money wasn't in alignment with my goals and my passions. So doing presentations like this and why I came with Thrivent, a Christian-based not-for-profit, really aligned with me. So hopefully I can get you guys on that pace, and hopefully I can get you guys on with the mindset, as you can see on the screen, that only 40% of the people take actions to make that alignment and to calibrate their day-to-day finances with what they want. This screen here that says 40% of Americans have created a budget. I take that to mean that 40%, that 60% of people think that it's all math, it's all based on numbers, and it's cumbersome and it's difficult and it won't help. 40% of Americans that have done it hopefully sat back and they went a little bit deeper than just putting numbers on a scratch pad, which is part of it. But the passion and the reason behind it should be the reason and the catalyst for putting pen to paper. So there's a pie chart here, and there's a lot of different reasons why people don't create it. I don't want to say that no people that don't have a budget have a lack of passion. Sometimes there are real obstacles, and these are a few of the obstacles that people run into. Some people don't think they need a budget. They'll never stick to it. They don't feel like it. They feel restricted. They don't know how, or they're afraid to check the bank account. So there's a short poll that we'll actually take, and if you guys don't mind filling this out, we'll get a little bit of a gauge here for why some people are here joining us tonight and what might be stopping you from actually having a budget. Give you a minute or so here to click the buttons. And very nice. 44% of the people, just in line with that other slide, said they have a budget and you follow it. Well, keep that going. It looks like the second two are you'll never stick to one and you don't know how. So we're going to address the I don't know how, and we're also going to address I never stick to one. As we go through these slides, hopefully when you say you'll never stick to it, again, realignment. If you're not going to stick to it, that means your goals are out of place. Your resources are being directed. And if you don't know how, we're going to walk through some of the steps on how to actually put pen to paper and figure out where your money's going. So this survey was actually conducted nationally as well. When budgets are concerned, men and women tend to respond a little bit differently. Men are more likely to say they don't feel like creating a budget. They feel restricted, and women are more likely to say they'll never stick to it. I know that I have a house full of women. I have 3 daughters and a wife, and I don't think budgets are really in our vocabulary. So I'm the one who kind of reins things in. But what I always remind them is in our budget and in my family finances, part of the money is allocated to the mental well-being of my girls. So I'm okay with them going out and spending freely. Not that I'd have any say in any way, but I understand that there's going to be a portion that goes to that. The survey also it reveals some stuff about ages. Millennials tend to respond they'll never stick to a budget. And then Generation X and baby boomers say they don't need one. A feeling of abundance. If you feel you don't need a budget, well, that might be fine as long as your goals are aligned and you're accomplishing the things and helping the people you want to help, including your family, maybe some organizations. So no matter what where you fall on that pie chart there, my ask for everybody, regardless of what the obstacle is, in order to overcome it, be intentional. Individuals work hard for their money. Money doesn't come easy. It doesn't grow on trees. We have to put in hours, we have to put in work and put in knowledge. So my first step and my first tip to anybody is to be intentional. If you personally are not okay with what's happening with your money, do something about it and start doing some knowledge and start being in alignment. So that step 1 is understand what matters to you. You can't be intentional without first understanding what matters. As my work as a behavioral financial advisor, we go through aligning a lot of goals with people and starting to understand and narrowing down. You can throw out a lot of different things and a lot of different verbiage out there of saying, well, what actually matters to people? Family, church, charity, animals, feeding the hungry, but you can't pick all of them. all the time, or else you'd go broke. So when you look at this list here and start saying, well, what matters most to you? It's a true exercise of reflection and slowly but surely aligning your money and your assets to something on this list, maybe one or two at a time. A lot of times people will say three. If you're really bad with budgets, just start with one and you see what really matters. If you have a spouse or a partner or someone or a child that you live with, maybe you put your heads together and you see where the overlap is so that you're both aligned. So to help reflect on what's truly important to you, to take a look at the words on the screen and take a few seconds just to write down a few of them that matter, maybe 10. Take a deep breath and then narrow it down to 5, and then take another deep breath and narrow it down to 2. And then hopefully start bringing some clarity to what's happening in your life and what you actually care about. And that'll give you a purpose and a reason to create some kind of budget, some kind of mechanism for understanding where your assets are going and aligning your actions with your care and your passion. So helping people understand what's important to them is one of the best parts of this. Again, day in and day out, I have conversations with people who have a loved one that they're caring for, that have an organization that they started to help certain people. Recognizing what your need is financially and what others' needs are financially, and putting a purpose above and beyond yourself of saying, hey, I want new Nikes, or hey, I need a new car every year. Putting some kind of purpose to it hopefully will help. And the whys behind the priority. Not necessarily the things or the objects that money can buy, but the feeling that you might get from actually making some kind of emotional or spiritual advancement is the core to maintaining a budget. If you see one thing on here, and I'll never oversee it, is fun. If at the core of your personality, which is not a bad thing, you say, I want to have fun, I want the new Nikes, I want the new car, that is absolutely fine. If that's your priority and that's your passion, then put it up front and go for it. But then understand that you're giving up in other areas there to do it. And at the same time, if your goals and your passion are your family and you want to sacrifice to provide, well, then you maybe reorganize the budget to pull back a little bit of the fun. Again, I like to think I do a little bit of both, but my priority is to my family. But the things on there are going to be different for every individual. But as you start going through it and prioritizing, this puts the reason to the numbers. The numbers themselves aren't the aim and the goal. So after you've identified the passion, the intention, you dare to set goals. You dare to say, what's the next step? I know the why. I care about family. I care about animals. I care about fun. I care about church. I care about my alma mater. Well, then you dare to set the goals. What are your hopes and dreams for life? What's the future look like? I read a book recently called The Optimism Bias, where people look in the future and just about everyone in the world sees a better future years from now than they see a negative future. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't take those next steps to learn the things that they need to reach that, or to take the actionable items either with a budget or with education and knowledge to reach that bright future. People can envision it and see it, but there's a disconnect. Budget, again, is just another word for alignment. Recalibrating today with where you want to be in the future. So the hopes and dreams of tomorrow are your goals, and that's the second step of the session. Setting goals, keeping goals, and putting a system in place that will help you attain that. Not all goals are financial. As a financial advisor, the first thing I'll say is money is not real. We went off the gold standard a long time ago, and the full faith in the credit United States government is what we operate on now. Money is I won't say fictitious, but it's not the goal. It's not tangible. The feelings that money can bring are tangible. The feelings that and the help that we can provide to people are tangible, and that's why we do this. So you might want to volunteer. Having money and having assets, so you don't need to earn as much, so you can go volunteer and help people. Very worthy goals. I encourage you to try to really mentally brainstorm and set some for yourself, whether that be to spend more time with family, whether it be to give more money to Eastern University, whether it be to give more money to church, spend time volunteering, to get out of debt, to help children, to pay for a kid's college, to start a scholarship fund, whatever it might be. identify it, put a system in place, put the passion into place, and start linking up what your income is and what your expenses are, and start putting the wheels in motion. Have a why. Have a why to where your hard-earned money is going, and start the story of why behind your goals before you start swiping the credit card or starting to do other things. And the ultimate way that's to identify goals is to make them what's called a SMART goal. Now, SMART is an acronym, stands for specific, measurable, achievable, results-based, and timed. Now, it might seem like a daunting task to go through these, but again, if you're passionate about something, the mindset behind it should be deliberate. It shouldn't just be on a whim. If you're one of the few people who can visualize something, put something into action, and drive toward that goal or that mission without being extremely deliberate, good for you. Most people are not like that. Most people have to think through things, start writing items down, and start writing the plan down. So how can you create a plan to achieve your goals? Well, start with SMART. Be as specific as possible. What does that future look like 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 30 years from now? And I'll dare to say creating some kind of a legacy 30, 40, 50, 60 years from now. If you're financially stable enough to create something like that, endowments, scholarships, things that will last into the future that will help for generations to come, there's plans you can put in place and mechanisms to put in place to do that. But be specific so you know what to focus on. Make goals measurable. If you want to have X amount of dollars in a savings account for a rainy day fund, just in case bad things happen, again, unfortunately, one of the things that spurred this conversation we're having this evening is a global pandemic. And a lot of people have had adverse situations in their house with losing jobs, but having a measurable goal. My monthly expenses are $3,000 a month. I want to have 6 months of emergency reserve. I need $18,000 as soon as possible within the next 2 months or 3 months to make sure that if there's a recurrence of the coronavirus and I get laid off again, that I'm going to be able to make it for the 6 months after that while I figure things out. Again, a passionate, measurable goal. Then ask yourself if the goal is realistic. Is it achievable? Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Bill Gates, from a financial perspective, they don't have much to worry about. For people like us, unless one of those three is listening, and if Musk, Bezos, or Gates are listening to me right now, I'm taking new clients, so I'm happy to help if you're in the market for a new financial advisor. But make the goals achievable, make them realistic. If you're making a certain income level and your desire is to own a house in Beverly Hills or a movie studio, or own I'll say Trump Towers in New York, because maybe it'll go for sale soon. If your goal is to own something like that on certain salaries and certain mechanisms, it's not just realistic. So take a deep inventory and really think if your goals are something that's attainable. But it does not mean don't dream. You can think big. If you shoot for the stars and land on the moon, you still got pretty far. But at the same time, realize that the bigger you dream, potentially the less likely you're going to get there, unless you have a really good method and a really good system of attaining it. And what specific endpoint can you set the results that you need? Are they short-term, long-term, mid-range? How far out? Are they achievable? And then the timing, the results-based. This isn't supposed to be fictitious. If you have a passion for animals, go support the local ASPCA. If you have a passion for education, support schools, support education, results-based. If you walk away from this seminar and this conversation this evening without an action, we all wasted our time. I'm hoping that everyone who's listening in walks away from this with some kind of results-based action. Something that's realistic, something that's measurable, but something that you can actually tangibly feel and see that you made an impact, either on yourself, on your family, or on somebody else in the world, and make your money really count. And finally, set a deadline. These things can't go on forever. Even like I said, 40, 50, 60 years out, if you create an endowment, there's a legal document you can create to make sure that that takes place. Time deadline. If you need an emergency reserve of X amount of dollars 3 months from now to be comfortable, put the plan in place and make a deadline for it. Don't let things linger. One of the things that is nice about behavioral finance is once you check the box on one goal, that goal tends to naturally develop and get bigger. Compounding. Retirement accounts. If your goal is to set a retirement account, you set it up automatically, but it frees up your mental capacity because now you can put things on autopilot and move on to something else, to spend more time with the kids, to create that endowment, create some kind of timeline and give yourself some smart goals of things you can tangibly reach. So sometimes it takes a little nudge. Any long journey starts with a small step. When I give my little saying, sometimes I mess them up. You know, not the sharpest bulb in the box type thing. You know, I mess that up all the time. So I apologize if I seemed a little scatterbrained. At times I am. But these things do take a little nudge. These SMART goals don't just happen one night and done, on to the next one. So sometimes they take a little nudge. You take a look at the list on here. They're all related to creating and living within a budget. Maybe jot down some of them. What you can do next to begin some kind of step based on where you are. Obviously, I don't know you guys. I haven't had a personal conversation with people listening on this panel today. But ultimately, somewhere on here, there might be something on the list that you can start small. If you already started with all these, maybe you can take the next step and start big. But everything on this list will besides other, the specific ones on this list will hopefully give you some kind of initial step to start the momentum and to start the ball rolling. Give you some inertia, if you will. So if you take a second to look at this poll here, and I won't make you commit to it. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, while everyone's looking at the poll, we did get a quick question, if you wouldn't mind taking it.
Sure.
Yep. So would you recommend any type of personal budgeting software or online platform so you can see how and where your money is going on a month-to-month basis?
I know a lot of people like Mint. If you understand your budget already, those budgeting softwares, budgeting tools are okay. The thing that I don't like about them is they don't know the specifics and they don't know the passion. They can tell you the numbers. You know, they can say, oh, you're spending X amount of dollars on food, Y amount of dollars on clothes, but they can't tell you the passion behind it. But Mint is pretty good. What I recommend a lot of people do, and even your credit card. So I use Discover Credit Card, gives me a breakdown of where money's going. You know, if you're starting at square one, typically what I recommend to people is be deliberate about your money. And at the end of each month, look over your credit card and your bank statements and start adding them up manually, either on a piece of paper or in some kind of Excel software that you create. You know, unless you're running and you're talking about a business budget, typically people's personal financial expenses, they know what's happening with their money. They're the ones swiping the card. They're the ones putting money out. So mint.com or the Mint app, MINT, I know a lot of people use and like. The Discover Credit Card or all credit cards, I don't know any that don't give you some kind of a breakdown. But what I do recommend is you go through and actually look at the line items and start trying to identify manually where the money's going and if they align. All right, so it looks like 36% of people said start money conversations with significant other. That's tough sometimes. If this is the catalyst for that, please do it. You know, I work with a lot of, this is actually a really good one for and most couples. And if this is on most people's minds here, actually 36%, in just about every relationship, there's typically one spouse or one person in the couple who's taking care of the assets and taking care of the money. Sometimes the other person doesn't care, just got used to the other person handling it. If that's the start of the conversation, my recommendation for that is to ease into it. Don't expect an individual to understand as much as you do right off the bat. If someone's spending too much money, you know, find ways behaviorally to change and make small adjustments. Don't think it's going to happen overnight. The smart goal behind having a conversation with significant other is, hey, I'm thinking about something. Why don't we get a bottle of wine and talk about this? If you're not a drinker, a tea or a coffee, or have a nice meal, but ease into it. Finding a different job, can't tell you how to, what to do and how to earn your money. But if you don't like what you're doing or need to make more money, obviously there's training out there. And the second one on there, it looks like, is saving $25 per paycheck. If you're not used to saving money, you're not a good saver. There's a book called The Richest Man in Babylon. And the general theory behind it is save 10% of your money. What I always tell people with saving, if you're not a good saver, you can name several of your bills: electric bill, water bill, phone bill, food bill, clothes bill, tuition for kids' school, taxes. Out of those 7, I missed a very large, important person. Me. Pay yourself first. Pay your passions first. A tithe, 10% tithe directly to the church or directly to the charity, right off the top. Those passions that you saw, the bill collectors are always going to be there. But your passions and yourself, those are the people and the ones that need, first and foremost, the most attention. So I always urge people to reduce. So that's save $25 per paycheck. If that's the first catalyst, that's the first step. Pay yourself first. If you're already paying yourself and you want to give that $25 to a charity to help as a tithe, do that right off the top. Let Pico scrape and claw to get the money. Don't get your water shut off or anything, but your passion should be more than paying bills. So start off the 25. I like that array of answers there. All right, so the step 3 is, once you start this edge forward, step 3 is to start understanding your spending. So using mint.com or using some kind of software, using something, it becomes the most challenging, but sometimes the most rewarding. This is where you start to take a look at your numbers. It's a process that's going to help you understand your income and your spending and gauge how they align with your priorities. Again, we can step back, realize your values. Moving forward, what actions are we going to take? But then how do we put the numbers behind it? There's a reason this is the 3rd step. The other 2 are more important. The other 2 are the feeling of why you're doing something, why you went on a certain vacation to get an emotional response, why you picked a certain university to get a certain education, or why you picked a certain car to fit your purpose. Those are the whys, the first 2. The 3rd step is the what. You determine you're going to go to Alaska to watch the Iditarod. You determine that you want to go to Miami and just pack a suitcase, some sunscreen, and a toothbrush. But now you got to pack the sunscreen. Now you got to start understanding. So the main reason to live with a budget, or to at least, again, I don't want it to sound restrictive, but you can start preparing. You can prepare for the hot sun in Miami with sunscreen. You can prepare for the freezing winters up in Alaska. With life in a budget, you can prepare for the what ifs, for the temporary setbacks of a job layoff, for the blessing of a new child unexpectedly coming into your life for the 3rd time when you only think you're going to have 2 kids, and then your 3rd one is a girl also. I love all 3 of my kids. Don't tell Callie, my baby, that I said that, because she's hope they're not listening, but she's the cutest one. So I'm glad we had that oopsie there. Beautiful kids I have, and they are a blessing. But understanding the spending so that you can start dealing with what happens when life happens. So on the next screen here, you can take a look at what the spendings are and what people actually, the average US household expenses are. Housing, transportation, food, personal insurance, healthcare, apparel, education, miscellaneous. The miscellaneous bucket always gets me. I don't know where it goes. Be deliberate. When I set budgets up for my clients and we start going through spending habits, that I make $100,000 a year, I spend $70,000 a year, but there's $1,000 in the bank. Well, where'd $29,000 go? Start being deliberate with that money. Start helping that cause. Start helping some people. Start saving some more. Start being deliberate and put mechanisms into place. Look at that budget with the intention not to be a restriction, but to gain clarity, and not have to always wonder where money went and that you weren't aligned. So when you're understanding your spending, you can simply commit to understanding your bank and your credit card statements. So as you go through this wheel and you're getting the slice and dice dissection from your bank or from Mint, you start understanding what's actually happening. Again, a picture like this is typically what you'll get from Mint, typically what you'll get from different budgeting software and your credit card. I urge people to go a little bit deeper in. As with anything else, the algorithms and the software isn't perfect. The 5% cash back on the Discover card doesn't work when it says gas stations, because the gas stations are labeled as convenience stores half the time. Go figure, but that would fall into this budget. So on the next screen here, the suggestion that I tend to make to people is it doesn't have to be a daunting task, but start somewhere. Track your expenses and your spending for 1 to 2 months. Look at your credit card statements and be patient. Specifically for the people who said they want to start the conversation with a significant other. People who are not geared toward understanding finances, it won't click right away. So be patient. Everyone has a different feel for money. Everyone has a different reaction for money. But the point isn't money. Again, money's not real. What's real is the emotional response that you get. Being a good steward with your assets, lining up your passions with your actions. And once you started paying attention to where your money's going, can you find ways to manage expenses and gain control? Take a hold of what's happening and really say, I want to put a process in place to reach my goals, to get those SMART goals, a results-oriented approach, that things that are achievable that you can understand. To help you get started to gain control of your money, we have a worksheet called Gain Control of Your Money. So when we start going through some of these, we're actually going to walk through a quick budget and a few screens. But next, obviously the second part of looking at your expenses and going through in detail what you're actually spending, people forget that they need to earn money as well, which is sometimes hard in this day and age with everything that's happening. But you need to understand your income. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, a budget's probably a little bit more important and takes on a different, I shouldn't say more important, but takes on a different form than if you're budgeting because you have this abundance and you don't know what to do with it all. Both problems, just different set of circumstances. For simplicity, don't include paycheck withholdings like federal taxes when you start looking at your income. Most people, when they're budgeting, really just want to look at what their take home is. If you're making $24,000 a year, that's $2,000 a month. That's not your top line item. You want to see what your paycheck is and what your cash flow, if you will, is. If you're self-employed, if you're paying yourself a salary or paying from a business, how are you generating income? That's the top level. Hopefully your passion can work itself into your job somehow as well. But ultimately, your top line of your budget isn't necessarily an expense from a mechanical standpoint. Your passion, your goals are there. That's a mentality. The top line is the income. If you budget out that you want to spend $300,000 a year, but you make $40,000 a year, that's a problem. You're going to go bankrupt someday. Things need to be adjusted. Hopefully that sticks out on a piece of paper. But when you look at your income, again, for simplicity's sake, you want to look at a cash flow number, what you're bringing it in. Look at your tax returns to get a gauge for it. See if they match up to the income from your bank statements or your deposits are going. And then ultimately, when the money comes in, look at the outflows. Be deliberate. So much is mechanical these days, and everything's done on a computer that people just assume that it's in a black box. It's not. You can track what goes into your account and what goes out of your account to a penny if you wanted to. So be deliberate. And there's that wonderful screen. Again, it's the the complicated screen. It makes it seem so easy. Income minus expenses equals spendable. I'll let that soak in because it seems ridiculously simple, but in theory and in practice, when people start looking at money, they're misaligned with what's happening. They're not executing on what they want and what they envision the future to be. They're going in a different direction, kind of like my golf shots. If I'm trying to hit a drive out into the fairway, typically I try to aim for the water and maybe I hit the fairway. But the simplicity is with a budget, you can be mechanical. You don't have to swipe the credit card if you don't want. So your budget comes down to simple arithmetic. Income minus expenses equals your spendable money. This is the point where the mood often changes. It seems so simple, but it's so far away. Go back to the values. Go back to keeping that balanced budget and always remember why this simple formula is in place. The math might be easy, the concepts might be easy, but human beings are instinctive creatures and emotional creatures. So when we start looking at this, you have to center yourself and realize why you're doing what you're doing. And there's all sorts of tools available out there. The next screen here, really, the gain control of your money tool is a basic budget. You can print this out, you can look at it, but it's the entering the monthly ins and outs. It could be as simple as that. You can manipulate it, use an Excel spreadsheet. If this is the rewarding step that you get, create one of these spreadsheets for yourself in a notebook, in a piece of paper. I didn't mention this in the beginning, but I am an adjunct professor as well, and I have my students track their spending. For 1 month, they have to think about what they're spending, and then for 1 month, every penny they have to actually write down, and then see if it matched up and see how accurate they can get. This is the first step, gaining control worksheet. So, when you go. So we keep harping on the fact that you align your passions, you align your goals. If you're a more an engineer mind, if you will, or math mind, this is the first step. Using mint.com, using your credit card statements. Typically what I recommend to do is go through this and get a general feel for filling this in and fill one in, and then take a month or two and actually track it, see how close you are, and then keep making progress. So where budgeting is concerned, it's easy to dwell on what you aren't doing. It's easy to think about money and the word budget and just say, oh, well, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that. This is restrictive. Center yourself, come back to the whys. I love going out to eat and eating nice big steaks. I can cook a better steak on my grill than most restaurants can, so I do it. So that worksheet that we said before too, guys, that's going to be sent out to everybody who's joining us this evening. So, it's easy to think about money when you hear the word budget, but think of the passion, think of the goal, think of the reason, think of the values, think of the behavior that you bring to it. Think of the goals that you're instilling in your kids of saying, hey, mom and dad want to be responsible. We're going to help you out. So you might be pleasantly surprised when you look at your list too. You can have some accomplishments that it doesn't have to just be tangible. You can put time on that list if you want. You're going to volunteer X amount of hours per week. Having a financial budget and having, a nice safety net will help you do that as well. Align the passion, recalibrate, recenter yourself, and really drive yourself to make progress. For the 36% of people that said that they wanted to bring a spouse or bring a significant other involved, that's a great goal. That's a good first step. I'm not going to cook you one of my steaks though, because my kids are already eating me out of house and home here. But when you have that nice meal and talk about it, you should feel accomplished in making that first step. So save money for unexpected expenses. It'll help those passions last a lot longer. It'll help your goals last a lot longer. And look for ways to serve others. Don't just make it about yourself. Most people don't wake up in the morning thinking that I just want new shoes, new car, new hairdo all the time. I personally, like doing service in my community. I like teaching people about finances. I like going out there and putting myself out there and helping other people learn about this stuff. But the protections, the accomplishments, once you reach them, are fulfilling. And you might feel restricted at first, or think that a budget is going to limit what you're supposed to be doing, but it's an expansion. You plant the seeds and then reap the rewards, and it doesn't always have to be monetary. If you're able to put a budget together and you align your passions, you'll be in a good spot. So the secret to success, guys, again, it's not really a secret at this point. Have a passion, and the passion should control you, not the money. Have that guiding light be the desire to help, or be the desire to do a certain activity. Don't let it be things. Don't let it be a big balance in your bank account. emergency reserve, some retirement assets, but retirement still is all about living well and having fun with your family, having, a good health. If you have good health and things going for you, that's all you can ask for, and be blessed with that. Money is just a tool to help others. So don't let money control you. It might be hard to accept that simple truth that money's not real, but you can't take it with you. And I like the story of the guy who said, I'm not leaving money to anybody. I want to be buried with my last money. So the wife cut him a check, put it in the casket, said, if you cash it, you can keep it. So you can't take it with you, guys. Don't let the money control you. Help some people out with it. Recognize that it's central to what we do. You need to understand finances, but money is not the goal. It's just a tool. There are resources out there to help you. Again, Thrivent is a not-for-profit financial services company with people who are willing to help. I specialize in retirement planning, life, disability, long-term care insurance, general financial plans as well. I help people redesign their future. The programs that Dr. Sachi puts on over at Eastern are great. Giving financial education, and how I linked up with Eastern was, I think, that shared common goal of providing financial education for people because it's needed. It's not always common sense, and there's so much noise on social media and on the news of money for the sake of money, and people need to get away from that. People need to get recentered, recalibrated, and realigned with the fact that life is fun, life is great. It's a blessing to have health, to have family, and to keep moving forward. But there are resources out there and people who are willing to listen and at least do things like this to give you some basic education. So I'm not gonna keep harping on you and say redesign, relook, but how can you use what you have learned here today to enhance your use of money as a tool? Again, I want to leave you with actions. You don't need to redesign your whole life to fit a budget. You just need to take small steps to start using money as a tool, to start figuring out ways to center yourself and be deliberate with your money. You work hard for it, make it work hard for you, and make it be aligned with your passions, whether that passion be your alma mater, whether that passion be a church, whether that passion be a charity, whether that passion be paying for your kids' college. It's unrealistic to think that people are going to pay for 3 girls to go to college with no debt and 3 weddings. I guess we're in a progressive society, but so maybe the husbands can help out on that front a little bit in the future. But I'm looking at 3 weddings, 3 colleges. I hope they're smart or athletic and taller than 5'6", maybe, because they're not getting a basketball scholarship, that's for sure. But yeah, be realistic about the goals. Money's a tool. Know that there's people out there to help, either through Eastern, either through Thrivent. Please feel free to reach out with comments or questions. And I'm going to turn it back over to the team here. And my contact information is provided on the slide. So if you have follow-up, please feel free. Thanks for listening, guys.
Great. Thank you so much, Mike. And we did have a question come in. And if anyone has any, we have some time, so feel free to submit them. So just trying to figure out the best game plan. If you have a bunch of debt, would you recommend paying down the debt before trying to save, or try to do a little of each? Also, any thoughts on whether you begin to pay down the highest or lowest debt amount, or highest or lowest interest rate?
Well, without knowing specifics, it's hard to answer that. But generally speaking, my goal for most people is to think of as things as a concentric circle. You don't have to attack one area at a time. It depends what kind of loans you're talking about. If you have a follow-up question, you can feel free to send me an email. We can talk about that offline. There's a lot of, I don't want to steer in the wrong direction.
Great, thank you. And then on top of that, once you have your goals, is it better to tackle them one at a time or try to tackle them all at the same time? For example, if one has 3 different goals all within a 5-year timeline.
If you buy a pizza, you don't shove it all in your mouth. You got to start somewhere. If you're able to start with the slice, typically that gets momentum going. So start with momentum. That's typically my recommendation. If you try to do too much at once, most people get overwhelmed. Most people can't do 2 things. It's proven that multitaskers don't do anything well, even if they think they're good multitaskers. You start off with one, the next day you move on to the next.
Great. And there's the contact information for Mike. And as we said earlier, everyone who attended will be getting the worksheet, this contact slide, as well as tonight's recording, so you can rewatch and also share the presentation. Again, it's only going to be available for a limited time just because with finances and things, we want to keep everything up to date and not have anything on our channels that are out of date. So I guess if any more questions come in, we can hit them, but we can go through. I know we have a few students and maybe alumni who are looking for jobs. So on the Eastern Handshake page, there are career opportunities with Thrivent. So feel free to take a look at those. We just want to put that out there. So if you want to do what Mike does and help other people,
Call me,
Thrivent.
I'm happy to talk about it.
Perfect. Oh, wait, we got another question that came in. Is it possible for a person over 50 to change their financial life?
Yes, of course. It's a, yes, very simple answer. Yes.
Perfect. And again, feel free to contact Mike if you want to kind of discuss some of these things offline and a little more in depth. So I think we can go to the next slide. And Al's going to talk a little bit about it, but I just want to let everyone know that we're counting down to Day of Giving next week. It starts on Thursday, the 18th at 9 a.m. and it goes until Friday, the 19th, 1,925 minutes. So right there is the QR code. So for those of you who are not on their phones, you can scan that code and it'll take you right to the giving page. And Al, you want to talk a little bit about, supporting Enactus and CBL?
Sure thing. What we do in the College of Business for alums are during the Day of Giving, you can designate to what school you'd like the money to go to. And what we did, I guess we didn't have it last year because of the pandemic, but the year before that, we have this event which is coming up April 7th, which we'll be, inviting you to because we'll be live streaming it, and Rebecca and Tim will be helping us with that, and alumni as well. So it's our annual Shark Tank event, at the ABC television hit show. We do the same thing on campus, and we grill our students with a panel of judges. And so we use that money for the prize money that actually goes to the students. So the money that you give will actually go right back to the student body. It's not going to be used to build this, do that. It's going to go right into the hands of students. So, and we just think that's one of the best ways to do it. Because we're trying to, stimulate entrepreneurial thinking throughout the campus. We think that's a really healthy, a good thing for our students to do. So that's where any of the giving that comes in this year, anything above and beyond that, we would put towards student scholarships as well. So any money that comes in will go directly to students. And I wanted to say one quick thing. Mike, you did a great job, and you got me thinking. The greatest saver I've ever known was my dad. So he came to this country in 1938, when he was 14 years old, from Italy, and didn't have a dime in his pocket. And he died about 5 months shy of his 80th birthday. He never had a credit card, and he didn't have a checkbook until I forced him to have one when he was 78 years old, because I had to help him with his finances. And he didn't pay for his first house cash because that was a little bit too soon for him, but he bought 2 other houses cash. Every car he bought was cash. Everything he paid for was cash. And so, and he had a 3rd grade education. So, it is doable. I know times were different then, but he always taught me the second you have to make any major purchase, like a car, the second you buy it, you start putting money aside for the next one. So when it comes up to buy the next one, you pay cash. If you have to put a new roof on the house, the second you put the roof on the house, you start saving for the next roof on the house. And it's basic principles, but it really works. And and I've instilled that, he instilled that in me. I've done it, I've instilled it into my sons, and it's not hard to do. And one of the biggest things he used to say to me is, you got to suffer, son. You got to suffer. There's things that you just can't have. So you can't just keep looking at things and say, I want that. If you can't afford it, you can't have it, because you got to save money. And so anyway, I'll leave you with that. And just hearing that from him almost every day throughout my life, savings can still happen. It really can. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Al. We'll just finish up with the last few slides quickly so we can get everyone out. Again, thank you all for joining us so much. We appreciate having your support and joining this co-sponsored event with Thrivent, the College of Business and Leadership, and the Office of Alumni Relations. If you scan that code or go to youtube.com/Eastern University Alumni, this event will be up there, the recording, along with a lot of our other past events. So take a look, subscribe, love to have you. And then lastly, last slide, any more questions or comments, you can contact us at alumni@eastern.edu. And again, we'll send out that email with the worksheet, Mike's information, and the recording. And I just want to say thank you again all so much. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Al. And I hope everyone has a wonderful evening.
Thank you,
Bye,
everybody.
everyone.